Hello, I am Jacob Chandler, and I'm a Boy Scout. Today is September the 13th, 2015, and I will be interviewing Mr. Clay White. He is a veteran of World War II. This interview is part of my Eagle Scout Service Project. The LaSalle Veterans Exhibit and interviews are part of my Eagle Scout project. Today I will be interviewing Mr. Clay White. Sir, what war did you serve in?
I served in World War II.
What branch of service were you in?
I was in the Army Air Corps.
What was your rank?
My rank was Tech Sergeant.
Would you point to the areas where you served at on this map?
I served in England. We were based in England and flew and bombed East Europe and Germany.
Yes, sir.
And lower, Clay. Look
Yes,
at
sir.
lower.
Here's England,
England.
and here's
We were
Germany.
based in an airfield in England, and we flew to the continent.
Yes, sir. How old were you when you started your military training?
I was 18. I was drafted.
Yes, sir. Why did you pick the Army Air Corps to serve in?
I thought that I would like that better than the walking foot soldier.
Yes, sir. Would you tell us where you trained at in the United States for your service?
I was inducted in found Beauregard, and from there we were shipped to the Amarillo Army Air Base at Amarillo, Texas, where I took basic training and also airplane mechanic school. And from there I went to Kingman, Arizona for aerial gunnery school. And from there to Sioux City, Iowa, where the crews were formed and we took combat training, crew training. And then we came down to Lincoln, Nebraska, picked up a new airplane and flew it to England.
Yes, sir.
When I got there, I was assigned to the 305th Bomb Group of the 8th Air Force.
What was your training like?
What was the training?
Yes, sir.
In the airplane mechanic school, we learned these systems, electrical systems, hydraulic systems, how they operated, and if necessary, some minor repairs, no major repairs. And we primarily were trained to do those things in flight, because on the ground you had your ground mechanics. But, we were trained to correct the errors in flight.
Yes, sir. Did you feel that your training adequately prepared you for your service?
Yes, it was. It was very comprehensive.
Yes, sir. During your service, what job assignments did you have?
I was the top turret gunner on a B-17 bomber.
Yes, sir.
We had several gun stations on a B-17, and I was assigned to the top turret.
Yes, sir. And the B-17, that's what's in the top front?
B-17, right.
Yes, sir.
It was the heaviest bomber the service had at that time.
Yes, sir. Can you describe some of the gear and equipment that was issued to you?
We had to, I entered the 8th Air Force near the end of the war. My first mission was January the 1st in '45. And, before that, the crews had the clothes, the old sheepskin clothes and caps. And we had the oxygen mask and headphones. But that's about it. But when I was assigned, we were given heated flying suits, something like a electric blanket, only it was in the form of a suit. which was much better, more efficient. It kept you warmer, and it gave you, you wasn't all bondled up. You had freer action.
Yes, sir. Did it seem like it was reliable and appropriate for the situations you were in?
Big part.
Did you feel that your gear was reliable during the situations of your service?
Yes. By the time I was in combat, they had perfected the systems too. There's very little chance of failure.
Yes, sir. Were you or your unit awarded any recognitions?
We were given a citation by the French government. I forget what they call it, Legion of Merit or something like that. That's the only one I knew of.
Yes, sir. Do you remember how you earned it? How you earned your citation?
Well, we flew missions and bombed German industry and railroads. And by doing that, we destroyed the enemy's capabilities. And of course, the Army liberated France. And,
yes, sir. Can you describe a typical day of service?
Well, say we had a mission to fly. We were notified the afternoon before that we would fly the next day. And we'd, about 2 a.m. we'd be called out to get dressed and ready to go to breakfast. And about 4 a.m. we went to the hangar where our plane was spotted. And there we were given, told about where the mission was, our route to the mission, what the enemy capabilities of anti-aircraft were in our route and at the bombing site. And then after that we went to the plane, and the maintenance crew had a hut where we kept our guns and ammunition. And we got the guns and put them in the turrets, the ammunition, and hooked it up to the guns. And my special duties after that was I was in charge of the plane log. I wrote down the names of the crew members, their serial numbers, their positions. And I also noted in the log the takeoff time and landing time. And another job I had was, my station was right behind the pilot and co-pilot. And on takeoff, I called out the airspeed to the pilot so that he would know what to, when we got going fast enough that he could safely take off. And the same way on landing. In flight, it was my job to check the crew for oxygen. After we flew and bombed at 25,000 feet. After you got over 10,000 feet, you had to have supplementary oxygen. We had the oxygen mask, and it was hooked up to oxygen system in the plane. Each person had a mask that plugged into the plane supply. And about every 10 or 15 minutes, it was my job to contact every one of the crew and see if there's any problem. And it paid off because on one mission, when I made the crew check, all but one person, our radio operator, answered that they were okay. So I immediately went to his station, and he was laying over face down on his table, and I found out that his oxygen hose had come out of the supply, and plugged it back in and turned the oxygen on 100%, and he revived. But if it had been much longer, he wouldn't have.
Yes, sir. Can you share any other missions that stood out to you in particular?
Well, on our first mission to Berlin, this same radio operator was killed by an aircraft fire. And close to the end of the war, there's a oil refinery in Brooks, Czechoslovakia. And we bombed the refineries probably once every 2 or 3 weeks. And of course, they'd put them back into production as fast as they could. But this particular one was, they wanted to destroy it, so they went what they called an all-out effort. 1,500 planes were put in the air to bomb that refinery and area. Now, we were in the lead plane and lead squadron. That means we were the first ones over the target. And our plane was flying right behind the lead plane. The lead plane would drop the bombs, and then everybody else would drop them when he did. And they told us, they said they've got 800 88 millimeter anti-aircraft guns surrounding that refinery, and said, you're going to get shot at. Well, when we got on the bomb run, on the bomb run, for about 15 minutes, you flew straight and level so the bombardier could get his sights set up and everything to bomb. Well, when we started on the bomb run, they opened up with, I think they shot every gun they had. Well, the plane right in front of us just flew apart. And the one on the left went spiraling down. The one on the right had lost a couple of engines, and he peeled off. I think he finally went down. But we were lucky. No one is injured, none of the crew. But 2 of our engines were shot out, and we had to land at an emergency airstrip behind the front lines in France. And another time we had to land in Belgium. We got shot up to where we couldn't make it back to England.
Yes, sir. Well, I see you have several photos here. I reckon let's start with this one. Who are these people that are in the photo?
This one?
Yes, sir.
This is the airplane mechanic school class. And a class started each day, and you kind of went through. And this was the class that I started with. That was on the 11th of November in 44.
Yes, sir.
No, 43. 43.
Who are the people in this photo?
This are members of the crews, of different crews. And it's taken in England, and in our barracks there was probably crew members from about 8 or 10 crews. And this was taken after the war ended, and we were all waiting for transportation home.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So I remember you said that these were some photos of some aerial shots from your runs.
Those were, I didn't take those. Those were taken by, on each mission you had a cameraman, one cameraman in one of the planes. And those were called strike photos. They were taken of the target and possible damage we done if the bomb was hit in the right place, or which they didn't always.
Yes, sir. Well, I might flip through these quick, so that way we can see them here on the camera. This one here says PW camp. Is that do you know what that means?
These pictures were taken after the war ended. We took our ground crew,
Yes, sir.
which never flew, and took them and flew them over the places where we had bombed, like the Ruhr Valley, and Cologne, and those industries there, and we showed the crew, you know, what we had done, because they had never been up in the air, never been on a mission.
Yes, sir. Let's see. I'm looking at some of these photos, and do you know? It seems to be. Are those pasture lands, or are those? What are all those blocks that I'm seeing here?
That's buildings and industrial buildings.
Yes.
And railroad tracks.
Yes, sir.
Is that the bombs falling?
Uh,
Are those the bombs falling? Or is that just on the picture? Didn't you have one that had some bombs falling?
I don't know if it's among them or not. I had some.
That one may be one.
But this is the same thing. This is the cities or industrial sites that we bombed.
Yes, sir.
That's a lake or a sea or something there. I can't see well enough to really identify them.
Yes, sir. I think this one actually might be some bombs that are falling midair. Does it appear to be that?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I just can't see it.
Oh, yeah, it is kind of hard to see.
Well, he's lost his eyesight too.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think all of us are wearing glasses too, or contacts. So, well, let's see here. So this was your uniform?
That was a cap. It was not a government issue. We had to buy that if you wanted to.
Yes, sir.
You didn't have to, but you were allowed to buy that and wear it. But it was not a government issue.
Yes, sir.
Different cap.
And so you said these were some magazines?
Yeah, the Army issued a magazine called the Yanks, and it gave current information and told about what some of the units were doing, and some entertainment. It's just kind of a history of what went on. I had several of those.
Yes, sir. Well, let's see. You said these were some V-mails?
That's called victory mail.
Victory.
You wrote your letters, just like you always did on a sheet of paper, and they took their letter and took a photo of it, kind of like a microfilm. And then I reckon they destroyed the letter because we never did get on it and never was sent anywhere. And they sent the film back to the States where it was, and then they printed the letter from that film, and the letter went to whoever you had it addressed to.
Yes, sir.
That saves space and time. They could, and then many ships were sunk, and if they had mail on one of those ships, well, that was lost. But like this, they'd fly that film and be sure that you get it.
Yes, sir. Well, I would like to thank you, Mr. Clay White, for your service and for coming to the interview today, and also for your time. I'd also like to thank Miss Jo for being here and helping with all these items.
He might want to tell you about waiting for the ship to come home. That's an interesting
You're
story.
quite welcome. it's nice to sit around and kind of reminisce, you know.
Tell them about waiting for the ship to come home.
Well, the war ended in May in Europe. And I don't know, they had millions of men over there. And some of them in the Air Force flew planes back to the States. And some of them were assigned to a group that made aerial photographs of all over Europe. And but I wasn't. Then the other way was the Queen Mary, which they stripped down and put us in there like cattle. I was stationed about 40 miles north of London, about halfway between London and Birmingham. But they sent us down to the south at a seaport that the Queen Mary could come into. And it was October before I got my turn come home.
Yes, sir. That was several months waiting.
That's 5 months.
Yes, sir.
But they'd send out they'd come in and load up. It was a 3-day trip. Come back. We was kind of standing in there like sardines. If you wanted to sleep, you had to push your little space out around them and take a nap. But we was too glad to be getting home to worry about anything like that.
Yes, sir. Well, do you have any other stories or memories that you'd like to share?
Well, one time on a mission, after the bombs are dropped, it was my job to look in a bomb bay and see that all the bombs were dropped out. And if they were, well then the bombardier closed the bomb bay doors. On one mission, after we dropped all the bombs and I checked the bomb bay and there was 2 bombs still in there, 2 250-pound bombs. And they wouldn't let you land at an airport in England with any bombs in an airplane. You had to get rid of them. So that was my job, one of my jobs. And at 25,000 feet, 65 degrees below zero, you had all these clothes on, and you had to unhook your oxygen from the airplane supply and into an auxiliary tank, a little tank about the size of a fire extinguisher. And the bomb bay occupied all of one section, and to get from one end of the plane to the other through the bomb bay, you had a catwalk about 8 or 10 inches wide with the rope handles, you know, as you walk through. Well, I put my auxiliary tank on and I straddled the catwalk, and I was holding on to this side and leaning as far as I could over that way. I got close enough that I could trip the bombs by a manual switch. And, that wasn't very inviting. You look down. And,
yes, sir. Well, after your service ended, what did you do?
I came home and I got my discharge in November, and I didn't really do anything until February when I enrolled in LSU the next year. And I got my degree from LSU in May of '49. And when I got my degree, well, in May, and in June I went to work for the LSU Agricultural Extension Service and worked 36 years with them.
Yes, sir. Well, are you involved in any veterans organizations?
No, I've been members of the Veteran of Foreign Wars and American Legion at the present time.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you again, sir, for your interview today. and for your service.
Quite well.
Yes, sir.
Second.
I believe that's it. Yes, sir. If you see here, this is a photo of Cologne, Germany. There's the big Rhine River going through here. And one thing Mr. Clay White pointed out to me is that I'm sure you might be able to see there's lots of devastation here. Since this was an industrial city, this city of Cologne was hit nearly 100 times or so with bombs and raids and stuff like that. And so to destroy all the industrial places. And you can see all the devastation on both sides of the river. This bridge is destroyed, as well as this bridge. But you'll notice this large cathedral with its two steeples, it never once got hit during the whole war. It remained intact. Even though, despite all around it was heavily bombed, including the bridge and all the infrastructure. And that was the point Mr. Clay White wanted to point out.